I'm Sara Leib, and this is MusicLibraryTV.com, your premier source for free music lessons online. And today I'm going to go over time signatures. What's a time signature? Well, you know, if you're listening to the rhythm of music, sometimes something is a waltz. Da, 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 da. Sometimes you listen to a hard rock song, it's don't no no chicka dong 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 chicka dong 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 chicka dong 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 chicka dong dong dong. All of these have different time signatures. So we have to know what time signature something is in, meaning how many beats are there per bar. We measure music by measures. So what I mean is, say we're in the treble clef here, we have one measure, we have two measures, we have three measures, we have four measures, right? A measure is one of these spaces, right? You can see that it's separated by a line. So in order to be able to write in the treble clef and the bass clef like we've done already, and in order to be able to write rhythms, every single measure that we're looking at has to be able to have a certain amount of beats in it. You can never go more than that amount of beats, because otherwise, you know, we gotta have rules for making music and writing music. It's sort of like, you know, if you're going to write an A, when you're learning to write the alphabet, if you're going to write an A, or an A, this is uppercase, this is lowercase. It would sort of be like if there was sort of, I don't know, if you're making chicken soup. You got chicken, you got the onions, you got the carrots. What else? You got chicken, onions, carrots, celery maybe, right? Water, all that kind of stuff, salt. There are got to be rules for making chicken soup. All of a sudden, you go and you put oregano, rosemary, basil in your chicken soup and it tastes like crap, right? You don't want to do that. We all have to have rules for how we follow what goes into the measure. So, time signatures tell us two things. I'm going to write 4/4 time. 4/4 time is a very standard time signature that you see all the time. And the top one tells us one thing, top number tells us one thing, bottom number tells us another. So the top number tells us how many beats there are in the measure. So you see the number 4, you know there are 4 beats in the measure. That's it. If you see 5 beats, it's wrong. It's just not possible. In 4/4. In 5/4, it's totally possible. The bottom number tells us which note gets the beat. So if you saw the last episode when we went over rhythms, you'll know what a quarter note is. A quarter note looks like this. And when we see a 4, that stands for quarter note. When we see an 8, that stands for an 8th note. When you see a 16, that stands for a 16th note. When you see a 2, that stands for a half note. All right, so let's talk about this time signature now. 4/4 time signature. Meaning, there are 4 beats in the measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. Say you see another time signature, something different. Say you see this time signature. Remember, top is how many beats per measure, bottom is which note gets the beat. So, in a measure of 3/4, there are 3 beats in the measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. In a measure of 4/4, there are 4 beats in the measure, and the quarter note gets the beat. Come on in. I'm taping here at LA Music Academy College of Music, where I'm a teacher and instructor, so sometimes my students run in and out. They give me ideas for what kind of lessons to do, and I put them online for you. You, as we go on, are going to be able to leave me comments down below, leave a comment down below, leave a question, say, I really want to know this. I'll be able to answer it for you. We're starting really simply. We're starting with how to read treble clef, bass clef, rhythms, and time signatures. Eventually, we're going to get much more complicated, and you're going to send me your questions on either music, music education, singing, and I'll answer them. And I'll even be bringing in special guests, which should be pretty fun. So, once again, time signatures. Top 1, top tells you. Actually, I've got a couple students in the audience here, so you can tell me. The top tells me what, Jackie? Oh, no, you can't talk. Elizabeth.
How many beats per measure?
Great. How many beats per measure? Sometimes we say measure, we put mm. So how many beats per measure? The bottom note tells us, Gabi?
One note gets the beat.
Very good. Exactly. And in both of these cases, it's the quarter note. Good. So maybe you see this. Then you'll know how many beats per measure. 3 beats per measure. Good. Which note gets the beat?
8th note.
The 8th note gets the beat, meaning you count the measure by 8th notes. So there can be 3 8th notes in a measure. Now, in our rhythm lesson, we said how much time an 8th note takes up. So you could have 3 8th notes in the measure, or you could have 6 16th notes in the measure. That would make sense too, right? Or you could have 1 quarter note and 1 8th note. Makes sense? Because 1 quarter note equals 2 8th notes. Does that make sense? I hope so. Think about it for a second, you'll get it. So, you could see 3 8, and this would be the amount of 8th notes that could be in that measure. You could also, again, you could have 6 16th notes in that measure too. You could also have a quarter note and an 8th note. And we'll get to dots and what those mean. Actually, we'll get to those dots right now. So, say you're looking at a piece of music and you see a funny thing. You see a dot. Here we are in 4/4 time. There's a dot right there in front of that quarter note. That could be a little bit confusing, right? So, let's look at that for a sec. 1, 2, 3, 4. Ta, ta, ta. Right? Because if we're looking at 4/4, then we have 4 beats in the measure. Quarter note gets the beat. So, ta, 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 ta. Meaning it has to add up to 4 quarter notes. So, how many quarter notes in a half note? 2. How many quarter notes in this crazy dotted thing? That's the question. When you see a dot, all the dot does is it adds half of what the note originally was worth. So, if the note's originally worth a quarter, right, then adding that dot there makes it worth a quarter and a half, right? So a quarter plus an 8. So this is actually 1.5 beats, and then this is an 8th note, which is half a beat, right? We're counting by quarter notes. So a quarter note equals the beat, right? Quarter note gets the beat. See that? Bottom note gets the beat. So 1 and 2 and 3, 4. If we're going to clap this rhythm, students, clap it with me. 1, 2, 3, 4. Good, again. Thanks, guys. Okay, so we're explaining dots. Now, if I put a dot over a different kind of note, for instance, a half note like this, it would be worth the half note, which is 2 beats, plus half of its original whatever rhythm it's worth. So it's not worth 2 beats now it's worth 3. Make sense? So the quarter dotted was 1 plus a half of 1, so it was 1.5 beats. The half note is 2 plus a half of 2, so it's worth 3 beats. Make sense? I think so. So, again, the dot adds half of the original, of what it's originally worth. Half of what the note is originally worth. So that's going to be it for time signatures for today. We'll get some more later. Thank you very much. I'm Sara Leib, and this is musiclibrarytv.com. I'm asking you what's behind the music, and I have a question for you. I want you to answer in the comments below. Who is your favorite singer? Again, Sara Leib, Music Library TV. See you.